Hi, this is group one. We're going to discuss empathy. The audio's not the best.
Just make sure that you introduce yourself as Michael Scott. That's the best. That was fantastic.
I'm Robert Cooper. Caleb.
Elizabeth.
Listen,
You're not in it at all.
We can see your hand. We can see your hand.
Okay, so we're going to have a discussion about empathy. So before we start, before coming to law school, we'll go around the room of how did you understand empathy before you came to law school? Dustin, go.
before you law school,
What did you do?
it means caring about others and caring about their feelings. Like I would say, as a teacher, you have to be empathetic. A lot of times, when a student comes to you and they have problems the night before, or any kind of problems with like a homework assignment or anything, like my dog ate my homework. But a lot of times, like we have to be careful of discounting the reasons that they didn't get it done. I know there's a lot of students in school that didn't get it done because they don't care, right? But you never know what these kids go home to every day and what they deal with. So you kind of have to always at least start with empathy with them in like their homework and home situation. Like maybe they didn't eat a full meal last night and they didn't have the energy to finish what you're asking them to do. Maybe their parents yelled at them because they had a bad day at work, or any of the other plethora of problems that they go through on a day-to-day. So as a school teacher, I feel like that it's a huge requirement to be empathetic to other people, and even in situations of learning struggles. I think it does. I think if you're empathetic and you kind of have some emotional intelligence behind it, it makes you, I think, a teacher, because the big thing about education is tailoring the style of your interaction and your teaching with each kid individually as best as possible, like accommodations or how they learn. And so, like, the more empathetic you are, the more attention you're paying to their feelings and how they view the world. Well, I mean, kids are just adults that aren't grown yet, right? Because if somebody cares about how they feel about something, even the kid with the most the greatest parents and support system, if somebody pays attention to them and how they feel or how something makes them feel, like I'm a math teacher, so people care about math, and if I'm empathetic to that, I make a kid kind of like lower their walls and actually use them without them being scared. But I just think if they feel like someone cares about their feelings, that you're more likely to be able to make a connection with them and kind of gain some credibility with them.
Do you feel like your empathy skills allow you to feel more energized to do your work?
I don't know that I've used the word energized in teaching much lately, but I think anything that makes my job easier and more streamlined would, yes, I would say that would make me more motivated and energized to continue my work.
Just putting yourself in other perspectives. So how did you use it? Give me an example. Just passing together on a situation mentally. Yeah. Do you think that helped you as law students? That's what you need to get done, how you need to get done, and even be empathetic towards yourself.
Yeah, me and looking at other people. Listening to their stories.
So listening behind you. So I think it's just not judging people and being able to see things from their perspective. But I think probably when I was younger, I was really good at that. If I hadn't gone through something before, I kind of was like, oh, why is that bothering me or something. But as I've gotten older, more life experience, I've been able to really be more empathetic. And I think it really happened all last year. So I would say once I've started, I don't know if it's because of law school, but just other life circumstances have made me be able to be a lot more empathetic, which has helped me also she wasn't empathetic towards people, and that always really bothered me. And so I would kind of talk to the clients more because even though maybe I had gone through it, I still could see like the hardships they were going through. So
So maybe before coming to law school, what you had was someone that's right?
yeah, exactly. I don't want to be like that.
Yes, and sometimes all we know is what we don't like, right? Like, I don't like that. Whatever that is, it's not for me.
And it helped me to see also that I was kind of being very empathetic myself, but seeing her being that way.
Before law school. It's the same thing that recent stuff, right? It's just, you're supposed to take a step or stand in another person's shoes. And I always thought, like, just not judging someone that everyone has a past and everyone has dealt with it their own way. Like, even if you have had the same experience, everyone deals with it differently and handles it differently. You're very friendly person. Embodied your empathy prior to law school? I mean, I would say so, yeah. I mean, I know I've been through a lot in my life, so I know what it's like to be a person who goes through it and no one understands it around you. So I always make sure that I'm cautious of that and I understand how other people are doing that. And also being a psychology major in undergrad also really taught me a lot of empathy and to show up authentically. Yes, yeah, that's right.
Do you think being friendly has made, because I'm not agreeing,
Yeah.
but do you think being friendly has made you more, made it easier for you to be empathetic, or?
I feel like the empathy kind of made me a friendlier person. Like, it was kind of that way. Like, yeah, I was always raised to like have empathy and think about like other people's things and even like kind of forget about my own. Like, I kind of take care of everyone else around me rather than telling them all my things. So I'm like a huge listener. Everyone's always told me like growing up, you're really good at listening to other people and all that. So I think that empathy has made me friendlier and it went that way.
So you know, like that nature nurture argument. So you're born with it or you develop the skill. So like in your case, you think in regard to most people think they developed it, well actually develop the skill or they're naturally born with the skill.
I think it could be a little bit of both. I mean, that's what I've always learned in college too. It's a little bit of both. You have a little bit of the nature where it could be part of that, or there's also a lot of the nurture. I mean, I just know growing up, I was always told like you need to stand in another person's shoes and think about how they feel and think about that. And that's what I was always taught. So I guess most of it is nature. Well, no, nurture. Switch that. Sorry, nurture rather than nature.
I can take that to jump into how I used it. So I started my career in sales. I'm sure you can relate to this. First couple years so, but a switch flipped when I stopped just trying to get the deal and started thinking solutions for whoever is the customer. You know, it's if you're only looking at it from how does this benefit me, and then you shift your mindset to okay, what is this individual who needs my services? What are they going through in their daily life? How is my product going to solve this problem, make their life better? And you can't do that unless you do put yourself in their shoes and really think about what it's like from their perspective. And I mean, it's a game changer. We've all heard the expression, no one cares how much you know unless they know how much you care. And so, like that. I'm not perfect in that regard. There are often times where, I mean, my 3-year-old, I'm often like, I just need to get in the car. But in his mind, him not getting his Cheetos is the biggest.
There are levels.
Oh, yeah. That Cheeto is really important, right?
Yeah, and it can be situations like that can be harder to put myself in his shoes than we don't get to go outside because it's raining. Like I can certainly understand that.
Well, there are levels to that. I mean, it makes me think as a parent myself, like, my son brings me, my 3-year-old brings me a bag of chips for breakfast, and I'm like, you have to have the eggs. You're not going to be able to eat chips for breakfast. Like, it's a tragedy for him. But I'm not very empathetic because I know better. And then, like, I think as we relate it to lawyering eventually, we're going to need to be empathetic selectively, probably to the things because what they think is best for them, it may not be exactly what is best for them in their legal situation. Like, they want $200,000 just to get this over with, but we as lawyers may know that there are going to be medical bills down the road. There's going to be this and there, and $200 is not going to get it done. And even though it's going to take longer, we're going to be empathetic to their needs, but we're still going to have to advise them of the proper thing, and it may not sound very empathetic to them.
Well, and a way to demonstrate that empathy is like when we this semester. Winning is relative. Like, you know, your personal injury situation, that person may be able to work, they may need the money today. And yeah, they may get an extra $100,000 if they go to court and, you know, try the case and all that kind of stuff, but like in the grand scheme of things, that it's much more beneficial for them to get a smaller amount today than it would be for them to hold out and wait. So
if you are empathetic to their whole situation, at least you can lay out their options.
exactly.
And if you don't care one way or another, you're just trying to hurry. And if you're trying to monetize it with your time, you know, I could get to, you know, 200,000 now, I get 30% of that or whatever, or we could fight this for 2 more years and we may get 300,000, but there's going to be more expenses and it may end up being the same amount anyway. As lawyers, it's going to be tough not to tell the clients to wait. We know that we're going to have to work a whole other year about, you know, just to get a minimal amount of extra contingency fee. That would be, I mean, now we're talking about how, you know, ethics come in and integrity, but you know, definitely have to be empathetic to their situation to help them make the proper decision.
Robert, you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. So the question is, did I become empathetic?
No, the question is, talk to me about how empathy meant to you, what it meant to you before coming to law school, right? Because you get a glaze over in law school what it should be as a lawyer, right? But your dad and stuff like that, what was empathy like before?
Before law school, empathy for me was the ability to connect with somebody. And can you relate? Can you kind of understand what they're trying to say, what they're trying to do, or maybe how they feel? Kind of like Evan, I was kind of forced into it after college. I got married, I had to support myself and my wife, and so I started in sales. And honestly, I wasn't very good at it at first because I would always try to go into it with an analytical mind, try to show people number-wise why it was a good deal. I realized something. Very few people make decisions analytically. Most people make decisions emotionally. And until you can't find what it is, what's pushing their emotional button, you're not going to be successful. So what I realized that month in and month out, when I don't have money to pay my mortgage, and back then, it was like 1998, and my first condo mortgage payment was like $700. And there was months I'm like, man, I can't spend $700 to pay my mortgage. I got to change the way I do things. So think about it this way. Remember that video we saw of the attorney and he was yelling at the opposing counsel? What I realized in life, if somebody's yelling like that, there's a trigger mechanism in his head. It's up to you to find out what that trigger mechanism is. And that to me, before law school, is what empathy.
So navigating to an outcome that's best for that individual, understanding what their needs are.
Take a step back. It's finding that person's trigger mechanisms that's going to propel them to take some type of action. I don't know if it's going to be good or bad in their favor. Hopefully, it's good in my favor. But it's finding that button, that on and off switch. That button.
So I was a significantly different person 4 years ago. Whenever I came out of college, I was not a very empathetic person here, but so that was it's not that I didn't care about people. It was more or less like I was friendly with people. I was more focused on, myself because based on how I was raised, Dean Williams said it best, is like those who are the responsible ones receive the least amount of attention from mom and dad. And that was me, I had two sisters that are very much needed the extra attention from mom and dad. And that left me, and I was the responsible one. There was no worry about where I was on a Friday night. So that left me, basically doing a lot of stuff for myself, by myself. And, I did care about other people. Probably not on a deep level. I will say, so, I went through a significant event after, my first year of law school, and that really it really knocked me down to where I needed to be, and where I, not depression and anxiety and all that, had to get medicated for it. But going through that period of like 6 months where I really had to, go through that, really kind of turned my ability, finally coming out of that, but really showed me a lot about what people go through as far as like the mental side, because that's something I never struggled with. It's something I never had to deal with. I didn't think much of it, but going through that, and I was like, oh, now I understand when people say, oh, this is really stressing them out, because I managed stress very well, but there was something that I couldn't solve immediately, and I had to dwell with that stress, that anxiety, that feeling of suffocating for months at a time. And that helped me, understand a lot about where people are, and all the individual struggles that especially a lot of people don't talk about. So my mindset, coming back to law school here is when it comes to being empathetic, my number one goal in law school is to make sure everybody else has a good time in class, because I'm just like, listen, we're all stressed to the nines. There's no point in making anybody mad at me or mad at each other and causing that division in a classroom or in between people, because there's no need for that. We're all adults, right? So it's my thing is like, if I could just make somebody's day a little bit better, while being here and, cracking a joke or saying something or doing something stupid, that means more to me, because I truly think, if I can at least get somebody a smile on their face, I know that they might be having a good time. So that's what it.
Or relieve some of that pressure?
Yes, like a big relief of that pressure, because I didn't have that relief of pressure. I didn't have somebody that could take that pressure away. But if I could take that away from somebody, then I've done my job.
I'll throw this out there. I have a hypothetical question about empathy. Do you think you're more empathetic to somebody when you know a little bit less about them? I'll give you an example. It's a true story. I know a gentleman who's going to remain nameless, and his relationship to me is going to be nameless. But this guy never took care of himself, right? So, literally slept all day, ate like an animal, never exercised. And I told this guy, this one person, I said, hey, you're killing yourself. The best thing you can do is invest $40 in a pair of sneakers. This was when sneakers were $40, now they're like
I just
$120.
felt like, wow, those are some cheap sneakers.
So I said, go buy yourself this all started maybe like 10, 15 years ago. I said, go buy yourself a pair of sneakers, and you need to start getting some exercise. No. This person's health has declined to the point where this person is now obese, literally body's atrophied, right? And now he's bedridden. He had a sepsis. It affected something else. He can't move now. He can barely move his limbs. So there's part of me as a human being that says, man, I feel bad for the guy. But there's part of me as a human being that says, you didn't take care of yourself. So those are the consequences. You can't do bad things to yourself and expect good things to happen. So do you think that I'm being, by saying you should have known better, I'm being unempathetic, or I'm just being realistic?
That leads me to my next part of this discussion. So when we're talking about empathy around this table, some of us are talking about empathy as a raincoat, and some of us are talking about empathy as a vessel, right? And it can be all of those things. So when we look at empathy, it's a set of understanding of skills, right? And so you can use it as a tool to help you understand someone else or help you relate, like naturally, like meaning like you probably want more friends, like most friendly people hanging out at school. Like you've always got a smile on your face. And so like that's a natural, but that might just be you. And then you learned that like that's how you get it, that's how you are empathetic, because it feels comfortable, it's authentic, it's part of who you are, right? In the same way that like cracking a joke is a way of cutting out the tension and normalizing the humanity of what's happening, and it is empathetic to do that. So it can be a raincoat, it can be a vessel, it can be a noun, it can be an adverb, it can be an adjective. You can use these tools. So what you're saying is, do I have to have one versus the other? Instead of, you can be both. Like empathetic is like, I understand how you got here, like in some ways, right? 15 years ago, I told you to get more around when you did it, right? So like for I might be a little bit later getting this assignment done or telling my team or my group they need to pick up the slack for me, so I go take a walk, right? Because so much of this, I think, what we learn in law school is going to be the next round through is like, how has empathy at law school taught you to take care of yourself? Because what we hear is always bestowing upon another, and you cannot unless you do it for yourself. So you go. How's it taught you to take care of you?
So I got a question for you. So deep down inside, with your psychiatrist hat on, are you thinking to yourself, this guy's a psychopath, feeling unsympathetic or unpathetic? Okay.
No, because it comes
It's just a joke.
themselves like they struggle all the time where you're like, that's kind of the consequences of your actions, right? We call those actions have consequences, right? And some of them are positive and some of them are negative. And so, but like you go. So we learn so much about empathy being, something before, but we never talk about it in the context of how we're empathetic to ourselves. And so how has law school taught you to be empathetic to yourself? Or where do you think you can grow?
That's a good question. So how do I think I can be empathetic to myself? I don't have a good answer for that, but what I can tell you is that now that as I get a little bit older, I realize that, for example, things like law school, maybe excelling at, let's say, at a job, maybe those are secondary things. I don't know, just like a thing, like a maturity thing, or you just get tired and it doesn't mean that much to you. Think about it this way: you like to exercise. What's your favorite exercise activity?
All of the above, but walking my dog is my most favorite.
All right. Let's say your favorite activity was jogging, right?
I like that too.
And let's say your favorite activity is jogging. You're jogging, and when you were younger, maybe you were like hardcore. Like I need to jog. Like how far do you go? 5 kilometers, 10 kilometers, whatever. 3 miles, whatever. I gotta do my 3 miles. I gotta do my 3 miles every day, and I gotta do it within 20 minutes. 20 minutes. As I get older, I'm like, hey, you know what? It doesn't matter. As long as I get them done, as long as I get some activity, I'm okay. How does that relate to empathy? Which is, listen, I gotta understand what position that I am now, and the position that I am now is like, it's okay. I just accept things and people the way they are, and I just roll with it.
And so empathy allows you to be more present, but it also sounds like empathy allows you to have more fun, to do things.
More fun, and it also has maybe allowed me to be more understanding. If that makes sense. To myself.
You can be more understanding of others, right?
Yeah.
Yourself a break with somebody else.
Yeah. So like you can't. I'll put it to like this colloquially: you can't be all things to everybody all the time. It's not possible. You only have this much energy and a very finite amount of time, and you can't spend it all at the same place. So I think that's what's allowing me to do. Maybe this is a comment. It's about like a seesaw between empathy and self-awareness.
Well, we can use them all, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the fun part of life. Like emotions come in more colors and flavors than sadness, happiness, and madness.
Absolutely.
Caleb, you're up for that.
Right. So,
How's empathy bestowed upon you? Now coming back to law school. And how is it coming around to you?
so it was something that I really didn't discover in law school, something that I discovered outside of law school. But there's a couple of things that I remind myself, whenever things do get tough and I'm where, imagine that the world's caving in. I shouldn't be here. That's what I tell myself. I shouldn't be here. There's 1,000 other people that would kill to be in my position. And I don't say I shouldn't be here as in like imposter syndrome, but going through what I went through, I shouldn't be here, but here we are. And the best thing I can do is, well, this is the situation I find myself in. As frustrating as things are about the law school process, I'm doing something that my family has never done before. And it is something to hang my hat on, and I'm thankful for the chance to do it and to prove myself. So it does to a point when I usually don't give myself any. So.
And do you think like finding that in law school, like how that's going to translate to the legal profession, like you're saying, like you're doing that with your family, not like, sorry, I lost my train of thought. But just basically how is it going to translate into like the legal profession? Like, is it going to push you to work harder because you were sitting here and you're like, I shouldn't be here, but I'm here on the one in my family to actually do this. And do you think that's going to push you to go farther in your career, work harder than maybe other trainees who don't feel that way?
Yeah, I operate in a system of I need to prove myself to a list of people in my head, and I'm just like, and there's that list of people that I need to prove myself to, and that is going to be, it's going to show up in my work as far as an advocate and other avenues like that.
Right, Tam, you go. How have you learned law school to be yourself?
I'm really bad at empathy with myself.
That's what we're trying to uncover.
As good as I am with empathy with others, I'm very bad with it with myself. I don't know. I'm very hard on myself, and I don't know if it's the same thing. Like, I'm the first one in my family to do this, and I'm so worried about disappointing other people. But like, I push myself very hard, and I'm very hard on myself. Yeah.
Do you think it's fair when other people say like, oh, I do these other things for myself? Like, do you think that's great, or do you feel like I wish I had that? Like, how does that wear that empathetic kind of insight?
Sorry, can you read?
Like when of course, sorry, my brain is going. No, it's okay. Like when you observe other people reflecting on how they're empathetic to themselves, how does that feel to you?
I don't know. I feel like it shows me that I should be more empathetic on myself, and that maybe I could take like how other people are empathetic towards themselves and try practicing that myself to make sure that I'm not empathetic towards myself. Yeah.
Keep it quick, and I mean, I echo everything you said. I have a hard time being empathetic with myself. In the work world, it's like there's a sales quota to hit or a project deliverable, and like people do care, but also no one cares. They just want the work product done on time. And then like in the personal world, it's like there could be a million different reasons why I don't show up to my son's soccer game, but all he knows is that dad's not there. So like no one cares why I'm not there. It's just you're not there. So it can be hard to give yourself grace of like, yeah, conceptually it does make sense, but in the other person's shoes, you fell short of whatever that requirement was, whether it's big or small or anywhere in between. So it's hard for me to be empathetic with myself because all I know is that there was something that needed to be done and it wasn't, and that's all that matters.
Yeah, and I feel like when you're not super empathetic towards yourself, that can also lead to burnout faster because you're trying to do everything. Because again, you don't want to disappoint anyone. You want to try to make it so like you might be like, oh, I really have this assignment, but instead I'm going to go to my son's soccer game because I know he wants me there, and I'm understanding that like he wants to see his dad there. But having empathy one way and then not giving it to yourself, I think it could cause you to kind of not do as well in law school than people who do have it, or life,
I agree with both of them. I'm not good at giving myself empathy at all. But through law school, I actually have started to give myself more grace because at least academically, most of those come easy to me, like college, high school, everything. I was always like very top of the class, and once getting in law school, I'm not. Like I'm struggling. That was like a new thing for me, and I didn't handle it very well. But this, like, I guess starting in January, I started to stop beating myself up about it. Like, how do you do it? Well, I just kind of like stopped saying like, oh my gosh, you're so bad at this, like you don't need to be in law school. Like I thought about not coming back and stuff. But then I thought, you're not doing that bad. It's just that you're used to excelling and it just comes easy to you. And like I was really working my hardest, yet I was still like towards the bottom. And that was a new thing for me. But I started to give myself grace and just kind of like take time, take a walk, stuff like that. I kind of think about my mental health because I've also never thought about. That's what I never like really struggled with anxiety and stuff doing that. So it's like kind of a new thing. But I think that like it's helped me discover new side of myself. And I didn't realize how hard I was myself until.
Yeah, no, for real. That's why I'm asking the question this way because it's not ever prompted this way, and honestly, that's most important. You want to go to it?
No, not to rush. It's just we got a minute.
We should start closing out.
So we're all in the same program, and I found I can be empathetic towards everyone else's life.
You all bring us home, brother?
Well, I kind of got empathetic because of law school just before we came to law school because like being 40 something years old and not being empathetic to my own self because of kids and side jobs and all of that. My wife and I had a conversation about like if I'm going to do this and go through this and have it as a second career, then I need to be more empathetic to myself and my own health. So I've kind of spent the last 2 years getting healthy, and it definitely helps. Taking care of myself is something that needs to be done.
Yeah. Well done, team.
Awesome.
Empathy. Yeah.
Nice job, everybody.
Highly recommend.